When Henry Ford gave the world its first inexpensive automobile, he also gave the world a brand new pastime, auto touring. You remember getting in the car on a Sunday with a family and traveling around seeing things. As a matter of fact, some of the first automobiles made were called touring cars. Well, consider this an invitation to do an old-fashioned thing, take an auto tour. I'm Fritz Wetherbee, and for the next 45 minutes, we are going to travel around this Granite State of ours, and we are going to see some things that are off the beaten path. In fact, some things that even some of the natives don't know exist. We're starting out our tour over in the southwest part of the state, over near the Monadnock region. So sit back and relax and enjoy some of the sights and stories as we go just up the road. We're going to start in Keene, go due north on Route 12A to Surry, then on to Alstead, and then east on 123 to Marlow, and then we'll take Route 10 south back to Keene. Less than 40 miles in all. We're going to start and end here in Keene, because Keene has terrific restaurants, it has great shopping, and it has gas stations. And if you pack a picnic lunch and leave before noon, in 15 or 20 minutes you can be in Surry at the Army Corps of Engineers Dam. It's right off Route 12A. You can't miss it. The view is spectacular and the picnic area clean and neat. And there's camping, and in the summer, swimming. This beautiful body of water, however, was not made without a lot of upheaval. You see, a good deal of the town of Surry used to be right down there.
When they built the dam, the town would have been underwater if we'd had a flood. So they moved most of the houses from the area over there up into this area. Mm-hmm. So what was once the village is now just gone, but it's a nice place to explore.
Mary Forsher is right. Her town of Surry is a nice place to explore, and it's darn pretty. In the graveyard, there are some very mysterious stones. And there's an abandoned gold mine on Surry Mountain right behind the town. Mary told me a local legend about the mine.
But a farmer who owned a section of the mountain didn't want it anymore, so he took a shotgun, filled it full of gold pellets, and dug down into the mountain and shot them into the bank. Then took someone up there and sold the land for a lot of money. It's called salting a mine. They even built roads up there and a dormitory. And of course, all the investors lost their shirt. Way, way up in that gap where it dips down there, there is a Lilly Pond. It's 750 feet up in the air, and it has been measured to be 80 feet deep, a real freak of nature. I've hiked up there, and I gotta tell you, it's spooky. 6 miles up the highway from Surry is Center Alstead. This is the first part of 3 parts of Alstead we'll visit. Center Alstead has a wonderful old green and the first Congregational church. More on that later. The town of Alstead proper is 4 miles further up the road. It has a wonderful library, a fascinating Historical Society museum in the old Universalist church, the third Congregational church, more on that later, and an amazing assortment of Greek Revival homes. I asked Dorothy Walker of the Historical Society about them.
And most of them were built after the Civil War, and at least 2 by a Mr. Prentice.
Who lived in it?
One was Marvin, another was a Dinsmore.
More to the point, what kind of people were they? Were they the owners?
No, storekeepers. They were the businessmen of the town. Mm-hmm. And most of them either belonged to the Masonic Lodge or the Anchor Oddfellow Lodge. Those lodges were very much a part of the social life of the village.
From Alstead proper, we travel east on Route 123, past Mill Hollow, to East Alstead with its lovely second Congregational Church. Now that makes 3 Congregational churches in one small town, and all 3 churches have their own minister. Alstead is probably the most Congregationalized town in America. And there's a wonderful photo opportunity here, the East Alstead mailboxes. We are about 3 miles down Route 123 from East Alstead and about a half a mile outside of the town of Marlow. All this area you see behind me was once a giant forest. It's very young now. And the reason for that is because back in 1943 there was a terrible forest fire. Burned thousands of acres around here. And when it was done, when the fire was put out, the astonished firemen looked up and saw this, the Marlow Profile. The profile has no nickname. It's just called the Marlow Profile. Some people think it looks like Richard Nixon. The mountain that it's on is called Bald Mountain, but to call the profile Old Baldy would, in my estimation, be terrible taste. And this is Marlow. Looks like a movie set, doesn't it? All the buildings are placed about perfectly. Now, I wondered about that, and it turns out it's not a mistake. Like Surry, this town was simply moved here. Seems back in the mid-1800s, when most of the citizens of this town moved 2 miles down by the river here to work in the mills, they decided to bring the town buildings with them. Well, that's it. You follow Route 10 back to Keene or home. If you go through Gilsum, stop at the general store and get a soda pop. Happy motoring. From Keene, we're going to travel just a few miles due east over to the town of Jaffrey. Now, Jaffrey's the town where Mount Monadnock is located, and Mount Monadnock looks right down into the city of Keene. Now, I wouldn't call this day trip a monumental tour, but I would call it a tour of monuments. It's called Buddies, sculpted from a single rock by Viggo Brandt Eriksson. It's a First World War memorial, not a soaring grand statement, squat and thick and plebeian and frankly kind of corny, a doughboy carrying his wounded friend from the battlefield. And yet, to my mind, this is a very touching work. This monument sits on the Common in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, just opposite Main Street. Now, Jaffrey's Main Street is also Route 124, which goes west from here to Jaffrey Center and then to Marlborough and then to Keene, which is the direction we're going on today's Just Up the Road. It's 12 miles from here to Marlborough, but we are only going about half that distance today, just because there is so much to see on this little stretch of road. But we're starting here in downtown Jaffrey for today's tour. And just look at this. This is the Jaffrey Bandstand, the Gazebo, which is just up the way from the Buddies statue. And there is a story to tell here. Seems that this bandstand years ago used to sit right here, but about the time of the Second World War it was sold. And it was moved out of town and boarded up and used as a kind of a shed until just a couple of years ago, when the citizens of Jaffrey got together, raised some money, and had it moved back here and restored. And isn't it beautiful? Just up the road from Jaffrey, and we arrive in Jaffrey Center. And if you're looking for a very special place to live, this just may be it. This little community of less than 400 people at one time had 38 people listed in Who's Who in America. Now that's 1 in 10. Think of what that would be in New York City. Let's see this. 8 million people, that would be a pretty big book. In the Jaffrey Center Meeting House, each Friday night during the summer, the community turns out to hear lectures